The Ottoman Empire has a tremendous story that begins as a small principality founded by Turks in Anatolian lands, then evolved into a state, and eventually became an empire that would rule 3 continents. Here is the 623-year history of the Ottoman Empire, from its foundation to its collapse. Although the foundations of the Ottoman state were laid in Anatolian lands, it is necessary to mention the Turkmen Beys Süleyman Şah and his son Ertuğrul Bey, who endured many difficulties until they arrived in these lands. It was Suleyman Shah who brought the Kayı tribe, which formed the basis of the Ottoman Empire, from Central Asia to Ahlat, and Ertuğrul Bey who took them to Sagaz. According to historians, when the Kayı settled in Söğüt, they were a small principality consisting of only around 400 tents. However, Ertuğrul Bey got along well with other Turkmen Beys in Anatolia and constantly raided the Byzantine borders. Osman Gazi, his son and founder of the state, continued this policy by expanding it. Other Turkish Beys in Anatolia who wanted to fight also started to gather around him. In 1299, the Kayı tribe, which had become more than a principality, began to be known as the Ottomans under leadership of Osman Ghazi, and thus the Ottoman state was established in Söğüt. The Ottomans gradually moved from tents to castles during the reign of Osman Ghazi. His son Orhan Ghazi, who succeeded him, increased lands he took from his father 5 times, and took the first steps to the European continent by expanding the Ottoman borders as far as Kanalıköy. Until this date, everyone who came to power used the title of Bey. However, with Murad II, who came to power afterwards, the title of Sultan was used. Before even 100 years had passed since its foundation, Byzantium was completely surrounded during the reign of Sultan Murad, and great progress was made in Balkans. Ottomans were now the dominant state in the region, and under Yıldırım Bayezid, Anatolia was completely Turkified. Until Timur entered Anatolia with his elephants, the Ottoman Empire suffered its first major defeat in the Battle of Ankara in 1402, under the command of Yıldırım Bayezid. Turkish unity in Anatolia was broken, and Ottoman Sultan Yıldırım Bayezid was captured. The state, which was left without a head, had not difficult days, but difficult years. So much so that in this period called the Fetret period, there were throne fights between sultan sons for 11 years, and conquests stalled. This turbulent time ended at the end of 11 years, when Mehmed I ascended to the throne, followed by Murad II, and in 1451, a sultan whose name will never be forgotten appeared on the stage of history, Mehmed the Conqueror. Conquering Constantinople at the age of 21 and putting an end to the Byzantine Empire, Fatih would conquer more than 200 cities in 30 years, and he would remain on the throne. With the fall of Constantinople and its capital Istanbul, the Ottoman Empire closed its foundation period and entered the period of ascension. The grandson of Mehmed the Conqueror was Yavuz Sultan Selim, who can be called the conqueror of the East. Sultan Selim, who ascended to the throne by making a coup against his father Bayezid II, increased Ottoman territory 2.5 times in just 8 years, and handed it over to his son Sultan Suleiman. Suleiman the Magnificent, who took over the Ottoman banner, set his sights on Europe. During this period, the Mediterranean was encircled, and in Europe the Turks had reached the gates of Vienna. Sultan Suleiman, who stayed on the throne for 46 years, spent 10 years and 3 months of his time on horseback on campaigns. Although all the sultans mentioned so far were capable and war-savvy rulers who participated in campaigns with their armies, this understanding was broken with Selim II, the son of Suleiman the Magnificent. For the first time in the Ottoman Empire, it was not Sehzade Mustafa who deserved the throne, but Selim II, who was less skillful in ruling the state. For about 50 years after Selim II, the borders of the Ottoman Empire did not change much. The state protected its existing territories, but could not advance as before. When incoming sultans were not very interested in the state affairs, There was a period of weak sultans and strong grand viziers who took over the administration. With the death of Suleyman Mehmed Pasha, one of the grand viziers who fulfilled his duty properly, the period of pause began. In this period, first Ahmet and second Osman were 14 years old, and the fourth Mehmed was on the throne at age of 7. Instead of these sultans, who we can still call children's state, was ruled by a powerful woman in harem and grand viziers. For the sake of their own interests, even names such as Mustafa I, who was mentally unstable, and Sultan Ibrahim, whose nickname was Insane, were put on the throne. This is why the Janissaries' most elite military group of the state no longer respected sultans. It was young Osman who wanted to change this era in which the state was not considered personal interests, were at the forefront and intrigues were in the air. But when Janissaries did not accept these radical changes of young Sultan, they rebelled and slaughtered Sultan. Sultan of this period who shone like the sun was Murad IV. He conquered Baghdad, suppressed rebellions, brought order to Janissary corps and central authority, and of course he did all this not with sweet words, but with his sword. In return, he was called a tyrant. The order established by Sultan Murad IV would slowly deteriorate after his death, and with the Treaty of Karlowitz signed in 1699, large-scale territorial losses would be realized for the first time, and the Ottoman Empire would enter a period of decline. During the period of decline, roles had changed. Europe had switched to attack mode, and the Ottoman Empire had become the defender. State of state was not very good. In this period, central authority was lost. Rebellions in Anatolia started again. The economy collapsed. Army order was completely disrupted. Many wars started to be lost. Janissaries turned into bandits rather than soldiers. Intrigues of women in harem increased. Most importantly, Ottoman people started to lose faith in the state. While the Ottoman Empire was sinking to its lowest ebb, rulers were enjoying themselves in the so-called tulip period. Of course, there is also the other side of the coin. Europe had advanced a lot in science, enriched with geographical discoveries. Steps started to be taken in terms of industry, and nationalism movement had emerged. At the end of the 1700s and beginning of the 1800s, Russia, which was growing and developing, and had managed to completely detach north of the Black Sea from the Ottoman Empire through both wars and agreements. In 1808, when Mahmud II came to power, the Ottoman Empire belatedly accepted that it was declining and entered a reform period by making some innovations. The Ottoman Empire, which maintained its balance policy well during this period, managed to survive for a while with the abolition of the Janissary quarry by Mahmud II, and then with Tanzimat and the Reform Edict of Abdulaziz. One of the sultans who best maintained this policy of balance was Abdülhamid II, who ascended to the throne in 1876. Nevertheless, the Ottoman-Russian War between 1877 and 1878 was lost, resulting in large-scale territorial losses. Although trade in the Mediterranean revived after the opening of the Suez Canal, European states did not favor these lands to Ottomans. Cyprus and Egypt were also lost and occupied by England. With the overthrow of the second Abdülhamid, the last act was entered and the period of disintegration began. Respectively, the Tripoli War in 1911, Balkan Wars starting in 1912, and after World War I, which started in 1914, the huge Ottoman Empire turned into sick man, as the Europeans called it, and only part of Anatolian lands remained in its hands. Istanbul was occupied by the British and parts of Anatolia by other European states. With the abdication of Sultan Vahdettin, the Ottoman Empire disappeared from the stage of history in 1922. Thus, the era of 623 years came to close, and now the stage would belong to Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the founder of the Republic of Turkey.